Here I'm going to talk about two Oswald sightings in Irving, Texas, one from Barber, Clifton Chasteen, and the other from grocer Leonard Hutchison. And for Shasteen, I'm going to use this document here, which is the earliest one from the FBI interviewing him regarding the sighting of Oswald from December 3rd, 1963. Mr. Clifford M. Shasteen, 2214 Fairfax, Irving, Texas, operator of Clifford's Barber Shop, 1321 South Story, Irving, Texas, advised that since the assassination and the appearance of Lee Harvey Oswald on television, he had identified Oswald as an individual who had been appearing at his barber shop for purposes of obtaining a haircut for the past 2 or 3 months, usually on a Friday evening or on Saturday morning early. His first recollection of Oswald was when he appeared at the shop on a Saturday 2 or 3 months ago at 6:30 a.m. when he had just opened. He remembers him particularly because at this time he was wearing house shoes which Shasteen considered out of the ordinary. He had commented to Oswald concerning the house shoes and suggested that they must be quite expensive. Oswald said, "No, not where I bought them." Then he stated he had purchased the shoes in Old Mexico for $1.50. Shasteen described the house shoes worn by Oswald as being of a light or brilliant yellow leather embossed with a design which he could not further describe, and as having one metal fastener which Shasteen described as being of the type used on the slickers, raincoats, in the years past. Mr. Shasteen said that Oswald usually wore a fatigue-type clothing or army or khaki trousers with pockets which he described as being straight down in the front. In all, Shasteen said that Oswald had obtained 7 or 8 haircuts at the shop, and that he never had liked any of them. He described Oswald as a hypercritical and disgruntled person. He said he never had a customer before whom he would have preferred not to patronize his business. The only time Oswald had ever conversed in any way with Shasteen was when they had discussed the shoes. Initial attempts by Shasteen to start a conversation with Oswald by asking him where he worked received the response only of downtown. It was evident from this, Mr. Shasteen said, that Oswald preferred not to talk at all. Shasteen stated that at times Oswald came into the shop apparently on foot. Occasionally, however, he would drive to the shop, driving a car which Shasteen had identified as belonging to Mrs. Payne, a station wagon which he had just seen parked in the Payne's driveway. On occasions, upon leaving the barber shop, Shasteen said that he had seen Oswald cross the street to enter Hutch's grocery store. And that's why I'm putting Hutch in this video too. On several occasions, Shasteen said that Oswald came to the shop in the company of a 14-year-old boy, whom he described as a white male, short hair, not a flat top, dark brown in color. He described him as a little bit freckled, with brown eyes, and stated he usually wore blue jeans. On one occasion, when this boy came into the shop for a haircut alone, not accompanied by Oswald, he had made some statements which had astounded Shasteen, and it was for this reason that he had asked him in his age, and he was told that the boy was 14. Shasteen stated that the topic in the shop at the time was foreign aid, and that most in the shop had agreed that the United States could not buy friends. The boy, who up to that time had had nothing to say, volunteered something to the effect that we will only be free when everyone has the same, when everyone is equal. The boy continued in this vein, Shasteen said, espousing what he considered to be communist doctrine. He said he had never been able to establish the identity of the boy, and only knows that he had been associated with Oswald. Now, there is much in Shasteen's statement that could be criticized, that you could use to say he's mistaken. For example, saying Oswald had so many haircuts when he apparently needed a haircut when he was arrested, and apparently people in the Texas School Book Depository, at least supposedly, they joked about him always needing a haircut. I'm going to assume for the purposes of this video that Shasteen is being honest, that he really saw Oswald, and if there are problems with his recollection, perhaps it's because his memory isn't the greatest, or perhaps it's because of Harvey, but I don't want to get into Harvey. But I'm going to assume that he really did see Oswald or Oswald's friend, and that he really did see this 14-year-old boy. And the 14-year-old boy, I think, is the most important part of this sighting, because I think he's J.D. Tippit's son, Allan. Clifton Chasteen gave two descriptions of this 14-year-old boy, once in the first FBI document, that's on the bottom there, and it says, on several occasions, Shasteen said that Oswald came into the shop in the company of a 14-year-old boy, whom he described as a white male, short hair, not a flat top, dark brown in color. He described him as a little bit freckled, with brown eyes, and stated he usually wore blue jeans. All of that fits Allan Tippit as seen here the day after the assassination, when he was photographed with his family. Now, he gave another description to the Warren Commission months later. He showed a little inconsistency about the eye color, but and the hair color, but eventually he got to dark brown on the hair color in the Warren Commission too. But also he said he had on blue jeans and they fit tight. You can see in the photograph, even though it's black and white, you can see Allan Tippit is wearing tight-fitting blue jeans. And Shasteen also said he had an old striped shirt. Well, I think technically that's a jacket, but I think probably Shasteen is referring to that garment that Allan Tippit is still wearing on the day of the the day after the assassination. And also on the right-hand side there, I think Allan Tippit was in Dealey Plaza at the time of the assassination. Now the boy, those two pictures on the right-hand side, well, one of them is from the day after the assassination, the one where he's looking into the camera on the bottom, but the other two are the day of the assassination in Dealey Plaza, and he's wearing that same jacket. It's a common style jacket, but there are differences in these jackets, and this is the same one, and they've got eyeglasses on him in Dealey Plaza in one picture but not in another, so I think those eyeglasses were added later because they knew it was Allan Tippit in Dealey Plaza. So this is a big thing that connects Oswald to J.D. Tippit, because apparently Oswald is taking Tippit's son to the barber shop. Also, Allan Tippit was born on January 1st, 1950, so you might say he wasn't 14 years old at the time that Shasteen encountered him, but he was he was less than 2 months from his 14th birthday. So I don't think it's incredible that Allan Tippit might say he's 14 when he's less than 2 months from his 14th birthday. And I should note that not everybody agrees with my identification of the communist boy. Researcher Greg Parker thinks that this is actually Bill Hutchins, who later went on to star in the movie Star Wars. Shasteen also told the Warren Commission that Oswald had been in there on November 8th. Was there ever an occasion when you saw him driving up that he had the 14-year-old boy with him? Yes, the night he got the haircut. The night of November 8th? Yes. And then he goes on to explain how he knows it's November 8th. It's that football game, the same one that Mrs. Whitworth was referring to, when she saw Oswald on November 6th. And now getting on to Hutch. If you remember, Shasteen said that Oswald, on occasion, had crossed the street to go to Hutch's grocery store. Well, Mr. Hutchison confirms. Leonard Edwin Hutchison, Scandus Apartments, apartment 505, West 6th Street, owner and manager of Hutch's Supermarket, West Shavy Grove, Irving, Texas, advised the following concerning the report that Lee Harvey Oswald had attempted to cash a check in the amount of $189 at the store, that he frequented this store. Since the assassination of President Kennedy, Mr. Hutchison had stated that he had learned that Lee Harvey Oswald had resided for a time less than a mile from his groceries at 2515 West 5th Street, Irving, Texas. He said that he had identified him as a frequent customer through the appearance of Oswald on television. The first time Mr. Hutchison could recall Oswald's coming into the store was on a Friday afternoon between 5:30 and 6 p.m. 3 weeks ago. Mr. Hutchison placed the date as November 8th, which is the same day that Shasteen said he saw him. Oswald, he said, came to the window at the small office enclosure at the front of the store, stating, "I would like to get this check cashed," and presenting the check. Mr. Hutchison said he noted that the check was a two-party check in the amount of $189, that it was payable to Harvey Oswald, written in ink and drawn on a counter check form. He did not recall the maker of the check, the bank on which it was drawn, or anything by which the source of the counter check could be established. He said he did remember Oswald's name because he considered it odd, and in that, having been in the grocery business 41 years, he had become accustomed to remembering the names of those tendering large checks. And at that time, $189 was a fairly large check, especially for someone like Oswald. Hutchison said he promptly refused to cash the check for Oswald, informing him that he did not cash two-party checks. Oswald walked out. Thereafter, Oswald came into the store once or twice a week until the assassination. Always he came alone, apparently on foot, as no car was observed, usually about 7:15 to 7:20 a.m. The store opens at 7 a.m. There is little store traffic at 7 a.m., and usually Mr. Hutchison and Oswald were alone in the store at this time. For this reason, Mr. Hutchison watched Oswald closely and said he had attempted to make conversation with Oswald without success. Oswald was very tight-lipped. Mr. Hutchison does not recall Oswald's having said a word. He was not responsive even to "good day." Mr. Hutchison said he did not recall whether Oswald had come into the store on weekends or during the course of the week. Purchases by Oswald always were the same: a small loaf of bread, brand not recalled, at 21 cents, a package of Mrs. Bard's cinnamon rolls, 8 in a package, at 39 cents. Never did he take other than cinnamon rolls. A 1-gallon carton of Oak Farm milk at 79 cents. The total in the amount of $1.39 was always paid in cash, and nearly always in change, no bills of large denomination, no checks. On one occasion, Oswald came to the store in the company of a woman whom Mr. Hutchison presumed to have been Oswald's wife. Of course, Marina denied it. This was on Wednesday evening, November 13th, 1963, between 6:30 and 7 p.m. Mr. Hutchison said he recalled the date as he had worked that evening stocking shelves. He first noticed the two when he heard them in an adjacent aisle conversing in a foreign tongue which he could not identify. Later he took occasion to observe them, though they were checked through the register by one of the two checkers, Helen Meese or Karen Hobson, neither of whom have any recollection of this. And then he gives a description of Harvey Oswald, part of which I have here, and part of which I have left off my graphic. And by HSCA time, Hutch actually has Marguerite Oswald joining in on the story, even though he didn't mention that before. But I'm going to try to not let that bother me. The importance of Hutchinson to me is that he confirms, in a way, he corroborates the Shasteen sighting. Shasteen said that he saw Oswald walk across the street to Hutch's supermarket, and Hutch himself says he came in. So I see it, and also they even named the same day, the same date, November 8th, when Oswald had visited each of them. So I view that as a kind of corroboration. And perhaps it's important that Hutchison saw Harvey,